All
right. Good evening. Another edition of Cocktails and Conversation with Mr. Brando, and I am April Bebee.
Where are my M&Ms?
Your M&Ms?
Remember last video I required 1,000. Hey, Daisykins.
And Daisy just entered the room.
Yes,
so
Daisy
if you
said,
hear any
I
whining or crying, it is Daisy.
But this is authentic because this is a casual one, so this should be okay.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about some more Iraqi Dinar questions.
Well, can we preface it with something? Like, I think our conversations need to be more like about investments. Like, it is dinar specifically, right? Because that's what we're doing, right? Okay. But like, the whole idea is that we're having a conversation about things that supposedly I'm passionate about. That are about like investments. The Iraqi dinar just so happens to be the subject, right? So
right.
I think though, like, people really need to understand that like our life isn't just run by one thing. Like, we have several interests, but the dinar is just one of those things that we're like hot on right now.
And we kind of touched on that in the first video.
Oh, we did?
Remember,
okay.
It was called Investor's Mindset.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to like kind of regurgitate that again, I guess. I just want people to think that we're not a one-hit wonder or something like that.
Okay. So, the first question, explain fractional banking.
Okay. Well, so when I had this idea about the dinar as a vehicle for like hydration of funds, right? And so like the only way that I could think about how they did it was if they could basically like take $1 and really make it like $4, right? And so like I started kind of studying how the central bank is set up and who was guiding them along, which was U.S. Treasury. So then I started kind of thinking, well, how does our Treasury Department set stuff up, right?
Right.
And one of the aspects of our Treasury Department is they do what's called fractional banking. So my thought process is that, okay, well, if the Americans do it, right, and then that means that they're probably teaching it to the Iraqis to do it, right? So basically what it is, it's a banking system is only a fraction of a bank's deposits are backed actual on cash, okay? So think about it like this. This investment that I heard, like, if someone deposits $100, they can't lend out the whole $100. They just can't to one person, right? Because that would hold the bank hostage. So what they do is they are only required to keep 10% of that in their reserve. And the rest they can loan out, right? To implement monetary policy, increase the reserve requirement, takes money out of the economy while it decreases the reserves, and the requirement puts money into the economy. So remember, I always tell people in my videos is a bank only has 3 functions. One is deposits, one is withdrawals, and one is loans. How they make all their money is through the loaning process. Now, they've thus since invented ways like fees, credit card stuff, interest fees, paper handling fees. Yeah, they have, but those are the main ways of them earning incomes, right? So I got really into digging into it, and what I found out is that the banks are exempt holding reserves, but all banks are paid a rate of interest on reserves. This rate is called the interest rate on reserves, or the interest rate on excess reserves, or the IOR or the IER, respectively. This rate acts as an incentive for banks to keep excess reserves. So remember, what's one thing you always hear about inside of the Iraqi dinar investment? What are their reserves? What are their reserves? What are their reserves? And for a long time, it seemed like Iraq wasn't really worried about the reserves because they were spending money freely. One, they were pillaged by that, gangster Maliki. 2, it seemed like a body couldn't get a hold of reserves. And C, it just really seemed like in the last maybe year and a half that they really got a fixated point on taking care of the reserves and what the reserves meant to their economy, okay? This reserve requirement is set by the Federal Reserve and is one of the Fed's tools to implement monetary policy. Increasing the reserve requirement takes money out of the economy. I already told you that. So what this does is banks with less than 15.2 million in assets. Now remember, this is just based upon our reserve system, not Iraq. So you got to kind of bear with me. And assets are not required to hold reserves. Banks with assets of less than 110.2 million, but more than 15 million, have to keep 3%. Okay? Well, the requirements of a bank that holds over 110 million assets is 10% reserve requirement. So the whole thought process there would be this. So if Iraq has 60 billion in reserves, right? Billion. They could loan out, would it be 6 trillion? Would that be 100% of that? A trillion? If a billion is one, it'd be like 6 trillion or 600 trillion.
I'm not following that. So you said they can loan out like way more.
Right. That's the fractional part of it, right? You got to keep 10%, or actually we just found out they got to keep 10%. So that would be their reserve right now being $60 billion. If someone deposits $100 into the bank, they can't loan it all out. Okay. To one person especially. They want to loan out to several people. Right. So they can get interest back in some place, right? That's why 0% interest is bad for people. So when they take that $100, they can basically lend out 100% of it. Okay. But they got to keep 10% reserves.
So if they can loan out 100%.
Well, they can't loan out 100%. They can loan out 90% of that 100%.
So it'd be 90. So an example of $100, you can only loan out $90, correct?
No, an example of $100, they can loan out $1,000 as long as they keep $100 in reserves.
So that means. Did you pull up your calculator again? You said so on a $100 example. Hit clear for me. So on a $100 example, they can loan out $1,000. So that means they can loan out 10 times that amount. So if you times it by 10, right, that'll equal 1,000.
Right.
So it's the other way around. So $60 billion, you times that by 10.
If you're thinking of it from the fractional point of view, now they can't give that money away, right? Because they got to loan it out. But how is the loan now? Everyone's wondering, how does this become possible? How much money did Iraq say that they needed to loan out to reconstruct their country? $100 billion. They got 30 of it in hard asset. So now they could really loan out $300 billion in the reconstruction. They hydrate the system because now they can pay employees. Everything that they deem part of the reconstruction effort is part of that loan. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So now with that $300 billion, plus if they wanted to put that other $600 billion into that, they've almost got $1 trillion. At $1 trillion at that exchange rate, basically it says that their currency would be worth what? Basically $10. That's not factoring in oil, and that's not factoring in gold. Oil you can't factor in really unless it's on Forex as a derivative to say that it adds to the economy, it strengthens it. But actual fossil fuels, I don't believe, can be added to what a currency's value or what its worth is. However, gold is. Remember, they are the 37th largest gold holder in the world, right? Not to mention other precious metals that we don't know about. But they also have something more valuable than that nobody ever talks about. That's a 30 million person workforce that have birth certificates behind it that they could go out in the international market and get reserves from that because it's a working force. Now, if you have 100% employment because of the reconstruction effort, you take that, I said 30 million persons, times that by the same amount. Now, you're well into the trillions of dollars if you're asset-based. Correct? Now you're not just taking that money, right? But you're taking that money and you're using it towards loans and survival. People take loans for businesses all the time and they pay people out of it. They use it kind of as their own personal monies, right? But it would hydrate that account. So if they did come back and say, now the Iraqi dinar is worth X, whatever that X was, if it was a 50 cents, $1, $2, $3, they would have the funds in reserve to cover it because of fractional banking.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes better sense.
Okay, then how can I make it any clearer?
I'm not sure, but I mean...
But you get it, though.
Yeah, I get it.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
Okay. So what's your next question?
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just trying to keep it to where, A, if you understand it, and I think I understand it, I'm explaining it correctly, which means everybody else
should understand it, yeah.
Right.
So explain fractional currency.
Good point. So fractional currency basically came out in basically the United States government after Civil War. What the banking populace kind of understood is that they had to have pieces of money to make money flow. So if you had 100 and 1,000, not everybody deals in 100 and 1,000. And before, in olden times, when you paid for something, you paid for it. If you paid for it in paper money, there was no such thing as change. Fractional banking or fractional currency is basically the lower denominations to Iraq. So it's their, what, 100 dinar note, 50 dinar note, 20 dinar note, 10, 5, and the fills.
Fills meaning coins.
Coins. And that's exactly what it meant to U.S. back in the olden days. So do you understand, to have fractional banking, to where things are fractioned off, you have to have a fractional currency to be able to spend out to cover that banking. One works with the other.
Right.
So they're just going to skip the old postage stamp stuff, and they're going to skip the old silver and gold because those aren't tangibles. Remember what happened in the gold market was basically people went down to the bank and said, my money, I'm scared it's not worth anything, give it to me in gold. It ravaged our gold reserves, right? And that's when after a while, Nixon just said, to hell with that. I'm going to keep our gold reserves intact, right? That's why our gold standard's bad. Do you dig it? Because people can go down and say, I want my money for an asset. I don't believe in the money anymore. And all a fiat currency is based in is belief.
Faith.
So once the faith is gone, the currency's gone.
Yeah.
That's why gold is bad for our currency because it takes the faith out of it.
Now, I heard that it's possible that we go back to the gold standard.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. So it's kind of like being like a really badass guy, right? You know, like when you see like those Rambo movies and Rambo has all those guns and he comes out and he's just like, I got every gun for every occasion. He's got all the ammo to the guns. Think of that as gold, okay? So think of the United States as being not Rambo, okay? So let's just do a little soul searching on that because I hear this all the time. So let's just find out what country holds the biggest gold reserve. Okay? Okay. The top 10 country in gold reserves. Number 1 is the United States. Okay? Now, it kind of depends on who you look at. The United States is 1.
Right.
Number 2 is Germany. Number 3 is Italy. Number 4 is France. Number 5 is Russia. Number 6 is China.
Interesting.
Okay? So
we're number 1?
It says we are, but we have no actual physical proof of gold because of our Federal Reserve. Because Fort Knox supposedly is empty, right? Now, I've seen this the opposite way where it puts the United States like 7. But I'll go off this and just say we're number 1. Do you think that we're going to back our currency by gold? Well, really, our money's more backed by petrodollar than gold, black gold, right? So would you allow that? And then for Germany to call the note on that gold and say, we don't believe in your money anymore. We want gold instead. If it was backed by gold, you'd have to honor it by gold. Gold standard's only good if everybody else is on the gold standard, and gold is at a very reputable rate. If it's not, then you just leave yourself open for exposure. A, to get your gold taken from you, and B, to have your services and goods go up. So the gold standard's not good.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Somebody wants my attention, and she keeps nudging me.
She'll get over it. And so is life. I want your attention, and I nudge you every night. I get nothing, so she gets nothing. I'm just joking.
He's awful. Look. Here's our star. Daisy, look.
See, I'm Daisy the dog. I know all about gold. Look.
She's got something green on her mouth.
Oh, she's been eating her bed.
I see all that fuzz everywhere. Okay, I'm sorry. What's a derivative?
Okay. That's a very good question. So now everybody's going to say, well, Mr. Brando, if you got all this money covered in gold, or not gold, but you got all this money now covered, you got your assets covered, why would they need a derivative? Because, in my opinion, people don't truly understand the actual process of deletion of 3 zeros. And I know that's one of your questions. So I'm not going to go there. So what a derivative is to banking, okay, it's a way for them to hedge. And when do they use derivatives? I'll read it to you. A foreign exchange derivative is a financial derivative whose payoff depends on the foreign exchange rate of 2 currencies, meaning a dinar and a dollar. Because that's what they're going to try to trade it in for. These instruments are commonly used for currency speculation, arbitrage, or for hedging foreign exchange risk. So now what we're saying is, so the Iraqi dinar doesn't weaken the dollar. We're going to hedge it. We're going to insert a derivative. So that means that if they did delete the zeros, which would make a $25,000 note a $25 note, doesn't mean that you're still going to keep the $25,000, right? If there's a derivative in place and you go deposit your money into an FCA or into a foreign currency account, that you're basically giving a mulligan. They're going to say, it's not $25, it's still $25,000.
Wow, wait.
Okay.
So
think about the whole act of deleting the 3 zeros when I'm talking about this.
Right.
The whole idea, now nobody really understands.
But it's that conversion rate. That's what you have to multiply it by, because when they delete the 3 zeros, right?
Right.
And then you multiply it by the rate, that's what's going to give you the value, correct? And that's why I had to think about it for a second.
Now, who would want a currency derivative?
We do.
Well, we don't know if it'll trickle down to the common investor. But like, let's say you're somebody like the United States. And let's just say you hold a bunch of dinar. Mm-hmm. And you know they're about to delete all these 3 zeros. Well, do you want your money at the $25 rate times the rate? Or at the $25,000 rate times the rate? So they in place a derivative to hold the rate. They hedge it. Mm-hmm. So they got all their money out, not just some of it.
Gotcha.
Okay? That's what a derivative means.
Gotcha. So my next question is, in foreign currency, is it a way, explain the derivative in the foreign exchange market itself. You just did kind of.
I just did. Okay. Yeah. What it basically means is that a country's hedging their bet. They're saying that now I'm going to get my whole value of the money off the currency and not the deletion part. So that's why when people talk about, like, I'll give an example, Zimbabwe, 100 trillion note, they lopped 6 zeros. Well, they should have put in a derivative so that you could capture all the zeros. But there's not enough money in the world to do that. That's why Zimbabwe is a failure as far as that's concerned. Mm-hmm. Iraq, at 3 zeros, is not a failure. Because the idea is, are they going to lop it off the currency? Or are they going to lop it off the exchange rate as we know it, meaning the 0.0083? Or are they going to lop it off the currency itself? Now, if you read anything that says anything about the Iraqi dinar, what does it say? They're going to lop it off the currency. They never say the exchange, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have $25, I'm just using, right? Multiply
the rate.
Let's just say the rate's $3.
Mm-hmm. That gives you 75.
Okay. That gives you 75 US dollars, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So let's just say you have to divide that. Let's just say you have 20 million in dinar, okay? Well, I did that backwards. Yeah. Hang on here, y'all. I know it's kind of confusing. 20. So how many $75 do you have now, which is one $25,000 note, right? Right?
One $25 note or $25,000 note. You're dropping off 3 zeros.
Right.
Times it by 3, that's $75.
Okay, so if you had 20 million, in essence, you would only have $266,666.67.
That's kind of low.
It's very low. So, do you understand why the derivative is important and why fractional banking is even more important to cover that balance? Because think about it. When Kuwait dropped their zeros, they didn't. They just revalued their currency. Mm-hmm. And then they redenominated it, basically. A redenomination is completely different than dropping the zeros.
Well, hold on. Take me through the redenomination process then.
So once you reinstate your currency, it's at a let's say a nominal amount, right? You then can redenominate it. Say, look, we don't want no more $25,000 notes out there. We want you guys to bring those in. We're going to give you full face value for them, but we're now going to have a $25 note. That's a redenomination. Now, if they come out and say, well, we're just going to lop off zeros off the notes, well, then the notes don't hold 25,000 in values. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So even if you think about it from this, like let's just say a sly person got super smart and was like, hey, well, I'll just go down to the bank and give me $5,000 bills. But remember, there's three zeros on 5,000 too. The only way
that breaks it down to $5.
It doesn't make it any better. It still makes it the same amount. So the speculation or the speculators are going to ask you, A, what's your foreign reserves? What are they holding? And B, how the hell are they going to cover it, right? And C would be what? What are they going to do with them 3 zeros? Mm-hmm. The deletions of the 3 zeros is, in my opinion, the whole key to the Iraqi dinar as an investment.
Gotcha.
Eye-opening? Mm-hmm. It's a cool theory.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it right, y'all. I'm just using an example.
So what's the deletion of the 3 zeros? What is that?
Okay, it's the process of physically taking your currency and redenominating it to a lower value. So if you have a $25,000 note and it's delete the 3 zeros, you're going to delete 3 of them zeros. It changes the decimal point to $25.
And see, in this investment, I've always looked at the rate the actual rate. So like right now, it's 11.90, right? One, you know, not in our currency, but in Iraq, right? Is 1,190. Now they delete the 3 zeros. I move it over 3 places, right?
It makes
so then that makes $1.19 USD to 1 dinar, right? And so my thought process is right if they go that direction.
Correct.
Right?
Now, what leads you to think one way or the other? Remember, Iraq's had talks with the IMF and the WTO, and they said, look, we want to reinstate our currency to pre-war times. We want our currency to be more valuable than it was in Saddam's era, which was $3.22. They can't do that if they delete the 3 zeros, or if they don't use a derivative, or if they're not fractional banking because they don't have to cover it. All of it kind of, in my mind, plays a part in it.
Okay. All right. Now, this has been a burning question that I've had since I had seen the videos, and it was even mentioned in the chat recently. Who is Dr. Shabibi?
Dr. Shabibi was the central bank governor in the times of Maliki that was actually going to take the dinar international. And I think it was 2000 whatever. But the problem with Dr. Shabibi was a genius too, as far as currency is concerned. Like, people are calling him like the modern day Edison of currency. Like,
and see,
he's brilliant.
So when you sent me the video, I kind of thought of him as the Iraqis' Alan Greenspan.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. Like, this dude is like he was light years ahead of his time. Okay? So he was about to reinstate the currency, I think at like
2012, right?
Right, 2012, yeah. He was going to reinstate the currency at like, God, he said it could withstand a $16 holding. Okay. So he was going to take it like Kuwait.
I would do cartwheels.
Right. And so Maliki, who was the bad guy, who was the PM at that time, said, if they do that, then we have to open up all of our budgets and books for the world to see, and they're going to realize that I've been stealing and pillaging and raping the CDI for my own personal piggy bank, and they're going to try me on war crimes. So he trumps up all these charges against him and throws him in jail. And it takes, I think...
Throws Dr. Shabibi in jail?
In jail on his ass.
He's in jail right now?
No, he's out of jail because they finally got him freed. But he got thrown in jail because he was going to take the currency.
That Maliki's a cold piece. Wow. I didn't know that.
Did you know Maliki was a solder pick?
Solder's the devil. Boy, he had just awful, did he?
Solder's been having it a long time. His way. Like, not even a bad way. His way.
Like, we just found out recently.
Yeah, like, we just really, like, put 2 and 2 together and we're like, nah, he's an ass.
Yeah. I think your intel gave you that information, right?
Yeah. Intel, I wouldn't call it intel. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Go ahead.
I want to fix
Go ahead, kangaroo.
Okay, okay, this is my thing about intel. Intel is something that if you didn't know, you couldn't find it out unless you had secret knowledge of knowing, right? So I don't agree with intel. You want some more?
No.
See my little ice chest?
I see your little ice chest. I don't have my mixers here, and I don't want to chase. I don't want to mix.
Okay. So intel means that I have some profound knowledge that nobody else has, right? And it's not true. My source is very viable, very knowable. He's a reporter from Iraq. The other person that I bounce ideas off is an American. The other person that I talk to religiously is somebody who's over in the Middle East, who's not a Westerner, but westernized, if it makes sense. And we all just share a commonality that we're all invested in some currencies, good or bad, that allowed me to ask them questions. Some look at it different than others, but it's not that it was not like my Baghdad connection told me this, and so, oh, it's got to be true. He's gotten some stuff true, and he's gotten some stuff wrong. But he's like 80% right all the time, right?
Right.
So I think the information was good more than the intel. Intel's bullshit. It's like guru shit. Like, the other day, like, someone was telling me that, like, the reason why they can reinstate the dinar is because they've got enough money and enough gold and enough fossil fuels. And I said, wait a minute. Well, if you know anything about fossil fuels, you can't count that as it's counted towards your algorithm, towards your currency value. Credit you can, but not fossil fuels, because nothing you pulled out of the ground counts.
Right.
So I was like, whoever told you that doesn't know what they're talking about. Make sense?
Yeah.
You want to talk about GFS, the global whatever bullshit fund?
No. I just wanted to know about Dr. Shabibi because that came up in conversation. So And what is his importance to the RI, the reinstatement or reevaluation currently right now?
It was his total groundwork for everything that we're going through right now. Like, he wanted to reinstate the currency before. So he was supposedly mentoring Ishmael Alak, and teaching him the ropes into keeping inflation down. Remember, you hear all these articles about inflation. If you ever watch Dr. Shabibi's video with the United States Commerce guy, he talks about keeping inflation about like 1 or 2%. That was a big deal to him. And then he says, you know, with that, we could reinstate the currency based on this. Now, they still didn't have the same foreign currency reserves. They still didn't have a lot of things they have going for them today. But he was like, man, I don't know if he was just saying it to blow smoke or what, but he was like, man, we could do $16 and no one would blink an eye. Well, remember, we heard Kuwait rumors and it went $12 plus. They don't have nearly the gold or nearly the infrastructure. The only thing they had was a non-corrupt government.
In debt?
Kuwait, yeah, they indebted themselves big time. Because they got the revaluation and then they got debt. They didn't do it backwards like Iraq did.
So, is Shabibi involved current day or no?
Rumor is yes. Rumor is no. I mean, he lives in Switzerland, a peaceful life. He's an old man.
Really? He lives in Switzerland? I did not know that.
Yeah, he's in Switzerland.
Yeah. Well, that was my last question.
Well,
do you want to add?
Yeah, I want to talk about one thing that a viewer asked about, which is the global quantum financial system. And it's here. It says here, a lot of Americans are increasingly hearing doom and gloom tales of a final collapse. Okay, first of all, you got to understand the difference between like your gross domestic product, also understand what your debt is, also understand what your GDP is, understand what you're buying and spending with countries and tariffs and stuff. And I always tell people this adage: if I go to the bank and borrow $100,000 for a house and I can't pay it back, who has a problem?
The bank.
No, I do. Because the bank's going to come at me with reckless abandon and make sure I never get any more money again, right?
They attack your credit, but they're not in the business. They're not in the business to really be in real estate either.
But if I borrow $100,000 from a bank, don't you think between their deposits and their loans and all that, they'll be able to get another $100,000?
Oh, by selling your house, they'll be able to get $100,000.
Perfect. Okay, so if I go to a bank and borrow $100 million and I can't pay them back, who's got a problem?
I guess the bank at that point, because that's pretty big dollars.
Absolutely. Think about it from this point of view. If the bank can't put together $50,000 on hand for a bank heist, how are they ever going to amass $100 million? They're not. So that's why when people talk about this quantum financial system, I would have to look at them and say that first of all, they call this the old, which is the old three-dimensional, very corrupt financial system, must collapse, be removed in order to make room for the new global quantum financial system to be implemented. What is the global quantum finance? Briefly, in words of Reverend Dennis Shipman, author of the posted article. And I'll read this to you guys. The new quantum financial system is a super advanced. First of all, this is just me. If I'm talking about the most advanced in quantum physics and it has to do with banking, would I use the word super advanced? Would I?
No.
Okay, that just tells you right now he's not a quantum physicist, right? Mm-hmm. Number two, out of this world technology.
Sounds like a dude.
It sounds like a 16-year-old boy that plays Star Trek in his grandmama's basement.
A dude.
Yeah, that's like jerking off looking at kitty porn. I'm just saying.
Edit.
Okay, now listen. Technology that the dark cabal does not have. Okay, y'all, let me tell y'all something. Are there good guys and bad guys? Yes. Do I believe in the cabal as a whole? No. I believe that there's good and bad people, but the cabal is bullshit. It has the capacity to map information sources through the multi-universe. That is the time-space continuum and no time/space. So, okay, if I'm a quantum physicist who deals in time and space, if you're going to tell me that I have a banking system that doesn't relate in time or space, then how is that banking system going to relate to human age, who we all deal in sleeping, eating, and getting up and working? Because that has everything to do with time and space. It can't. The data in a compilation of materials the size of a grain of sand, gone are the days of data server centers the size of football fields. Well, y'all, I have a hearing for you. That is called the cloud. The cloud totally took that over, right? Am I wrong?
Right.
Okay, so Your quantum financial systems is nothing more than a Jessera, Nessera, bullshit, stupid, contradictive to the person that doesn't understand quantum physics as a whole. And I'll define quantum physics if you want. Do you want me to real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so let's define quantum physics. And a lot of people are going to say, well, where's your energy tonight, Mr. Brando?
Where's your who?
My energy.
Yeah, where is it?
Y'all, I've worked 14 hours a day, so I'm sorry. I'm not like... Okay.
Tired.
Okay, I'm not tired. I'm ready for like number 2, okay? But I'm going to give you the theory, okay? The quantum theory is a theoretical basis of modern physics that explains the nature and the behavior of matter and energy on the atomic and subatomic level. The nature and behavior of a matter and energy at the level sometimes referred to as quantum physics and quantum mechanics. So, if we're going to define quantum physics, the last thing we just gave it to, which is, what did we call that? Financial system, right? Right? So that means it deals on a matter or submatter, right? When you start talking about the idea that you have the ability to alter time and space as a human being, don't you find that kind of odd? And the whole basis for this that you're basing your argument on is that our financial system as a whole needs to collapse. My question to you would be, how are you going to bend that time-space continuum and take out the mechanics of it or change it as opposed to banking? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
I'm lost.
Are you? Yeah. Meaning that, okay, you have a banking system in place, right? Mm-hmm. But if I have quantum physics, I don't rely on time or space, so I can change whatever I want.
Right.
So, how? How would you do that? By what method? Well, it's a super high-tech technology that only we have. I'll quote it to you one more time.
I don't know how to change that.
Okay, I'll quote it to you one more time. The author of it said it's an out-of-this-world technology that the Dark Cabal does not have. But the Dark Cabal does have three-dimensional technology that is in the corrupt system that's been in place for years. Mm-hmm. Right? But they don't have this new one that's super cool. It has the capacity to map information, sources throughout the multi-universe. So there's multiverses. What does that sound like? The Matrix. There are multiverses. You don't remember?
Yeah.
The Matrix is a theory among life, and it is also thought of to be a biblical study of mankind as opposed to technology. A lot of people don't know that. But it's true. I'm just trying to tell you all this. If you're going to do research, or you're going to believe in a currency, or a derivative, or an algorithm, or, hell, Mr. Brando, who's a kangaroo, at least do your part in opening up a book and start to read about it. Right?
Right.
Don't just believe Mr. Brando because Mr. Brando's believable. Check Mr. Brando's facts, check April Bebee's facts, and understand that everybody ain't telling the truth. That's why I got in this guru thing. I'm going to call myself a guru. I'm a kangaroo guru. I got in this because there was enough lies involved in it that I finally wanted to hear the truth from someone that I believed and that I trusted.
Yourself.
Well, not myself. Obviously, a few people believe in the same things and they don't want to be bullshitted. Mm-hmm. But I think that so many of you guys out there don't. You've been beaten down so far and that you just don't have another way, that you're not able to put in the time and the effort to do the research that I am and that Miss Bebee helps out with and stuff. So it's like, I'll just believe in anything like this. This is sad. Oh, and he has this really cool chart that's like a video game. Look, babe. It's really cool. It has people and radar screens. It looks like a cheap video game that I played like when I was 13 years old. that, you know what, y'all, that is my whole cocktail and conversation for this half. I don't mean to sound like a jerk. It's probably very boring to a lot of you, but I hope a lot of you guys just take the time to understand that this investment's not for the flash in the pan, fly by night, I'm going to get rich tomorrow people. This every weekend, every day, every hour thing is over, and we're about to understand and really, really understand what's happening. Hope I didn't bore you guys too much with my explanations and theories, but I'm done. For now.
Well, thank you. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe.
And hit the bell!
Notification. And
gang,
we'll
gang!
see you next time.